Hi everyone. I'm Caitlin Jones, and I'm going to be talking about the dominating patriarchal society that is seen all throughout older fairy tales. So, like your ones from years and years ago, not like your original ones. They're still there, but my project's over the older ones. So, first, I want to start off with what exactly are fairy tales. So, I like to think of them as the folklore genre that is comprised of heroic individuals, magical creatures, your romance of the prince and the princess, and the overcoming this huge journey in which the hero needs to take, and hopeful endings. And that's the really important part. And further elaborating on that, they are this unbelievable and fictional, normally shorter story of a human journey in search for this ideal, perfect utopian world or society. And that's going back to the hopeful endings. And of course, my project's over the negatives pertaining to fairy tales. So they also include a lot of sexism, racist qualities, conservative ideals, and that's mostly due to the time period in which they are written in. And lastly, there are classic tales that have been shared orally or through writing from the past. So it's kind of like this alien world. And that's what makes them so entertaining and exciting for mostly children to read because it's this unimaginable world that everybody wishes to live in. And now I'm going to talk about how fairy tales demonstrate these sexist tendencies. So within fairy tales, there's always this message like deeply embedded that a lot of people don't look at. And it's of this patriarchal system taken in place, and how a woman is assigned a gender role. So you'll see in the stories I'll share that each of the women have a certain thing or a certain part that they have to take because of the male figure. And there's usually two parts seen within fairy tales, and that's going to be your dominating male figure and your submissive female. And overall, it gives fairy tales give this false depiction of how women should be treated or behave in society, and as well as it gives a false depiction of how women themselves view themselves because of the things that they're told and the way that they are raised to become. And the first story I'm going to talk about is Katie Woodencloak. So these two stories I didn't realize were actually part of our fairy tale stories. So luckily you guys probably already know about it. So um, Katie Woodencloak is a Norwegian depiction of Cinderella, and it shows a classic example of these negative attributes being given towards women. So within the story, obedience from Katie is seen as a positive incentive. So woman is obedient, they receive the reward, they receive their happy ending. And relating to that, it talks about how Katie actually only relies on the bull and the prince to reach her fairy tale ending. And within the story, you can see how the prince continues to call her ugly and like worthless, and he only loves her and like wants to be with her when she's considered beautiful. So the main message within that story and a lot of the princess and prince stories is that women's emotions are completely negated, and the appearance is declared your chief principle, and that's secondary to the woman's inner being and who they are as a person. And the next story is going to be East of the Sun, West of the Moon, a very good story. And this one, I don't know if a lot of people realize this or not, but although she gets her happy ending, she falls in love with this beautiful, handsome prince. She immediately says no. She doesn't want to marry a random person, but her father is the one who says, "You need to do this." He chooses money and riches over her own happiness, and as a woman, she's obliged to obligate to what he wants. And within the story, there without obedience, stability, um, the well-being of a female is almost always non-existent or unobtainable without becoming submissive. So within the story, she is submissive, and that's why she gets her happy ending. And overall, within the whole concept of older fairy tales, you can see male superiority versus woman submissiveness. And my main message is, although fairy tales like give you this world in which you could live in and something that a lot of people find very, very entertaining. It teaches youth who are easily influenced throughout their childhood to absorb this information, and for girls to absorb the information regarding I have to be beautiful to be worthy. And it teaches morals for the women to submit to authority and to only believe that they are good enough is if the male gives them the attention that they need. And the idea of a woman's role is depicted in so many different fairy tales is that beauty is what makes you worthy. And within fairy tales, it should be scrutinized with the way that women are portrayed, but it gives you this false reality. It gives children this false reality of what the real world is like, and makes people feel like, okay, I want this, makes kids feel like I want this type of world. This is how I'm going to be. And that's not talked about enough. And I hope you see my message and I hope you enjoyed. And